stop spinning. There we go. I'm live. I really hope I put it on private. We'll find out in an hour.
When the lawyers call.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back, or for the first time, to Nerd Bible Podcast with myself, George, my co-host, and really rambunctious loud man, Connor. And
Connor!
This is what I get for saying you have too much charisma.
Yeah, no, thanks. He said it.
Joined this week for, why are you still talking about Doctor Who? Because that's all that's on, and that's all we care about. Joined by the wonderful Mr. Guy Lambert. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks very much for inviting me on. And I am represented today by a Jolly Welshman as my avatar.
That sounds like a lovely pub.
Yeah, it used to be open 13 days a year. Now it's only open 8 days. So
do a lovely Sunday roast.
Yeah, not anymore. They used to do that when Chibnall ran it, but
no, it's only on Saturdays. You get.
When Moffat ran it, it was out of order. So you'd turn up and you would have finished your meal, and then by the time you left, you'd order it.
Yeah, this is a clever pub. I'm so very clever.
Yes, it's too clever.
I've already drunk your drinks, but you have to pay for them.
Whether you like it or not.
Oh, definitely. Oh, for those that don't know you, Guy, would you like to? This sounds a bit like a sort of dating tape from the 80s. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into Doctor Who?
Yeah, so what am I? We'll check my LinkedIn because I have too many jobs. I'm a producer, writer, director. I used to run a talent agency. I'm a casting producer as well. I'm a strategist for like influencer bookings and things like that. And I'm sure there's other things. Oh, copyright, and I help presenters and I script read, and I'm kind of just like one of those people who just loves a lot of stuff and will do it for money. So who knows how many other things will be added or deleted from that list in the next few years, depending on my mortgage. So how did I get into Doctor Who? Well, I am considerably older than you, and my memory, my first memory of Doctor Who is the Three Doctors.
Ooh.
But I'm not that old because it was the 1982 repeat of it, or maybe no, 1981 repeat of it. And I remember watching these blobby things in black and white, black and white portable telly upstairs. That's how old I am. And I was like, I just remember that. And that's my first memory of it, weirdly. But I grew up with Peter Davison and then Colin. I loved it. I just thought it was the best thing on telly. And I think it's still, whatever anyone thinks of individual episodes or eras or whatever, it is unlike anything else on TV, even now with Strange Things, Star Wars, Marvel, blah 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 blah. There's just nothing else like it. And even when there are episodes I don't enjoy so much, I enjoy being in that world. Do you know what I mean?
If we had to push you for a favorite Doctor
on the spot,
well, it's got to be Pete Davison because I grew up with Peter Davison. I had two, not literally, I had two heroes when I was a kid, Han Solo and Peter Davison's Doctor Who. And they're both, what I liked about them and what continues to kind of inspire me is they were sort of rebellious. Literally with Han Solo, because he was a rebel alliance. So, and Doctor Who had rebelled against his own people. So I was really inspired by that.
Since day one.
Yeah, so and for good and bad, I have maintained a certain element of rebelliousness throughout my life. So yeah, Peter Davison. It's got to be Peter. Can I swear on this podcast?
You can say whatever you like, mate. Honestly.
I met Peter Davison a couple of times, and the most memorable one for me was when I went to, I think it was the 30th anniversary event in Longley, and I rocked up there with my nerdy appearance, as I was a huge nerd then, but with no sense of any. Anyway, don't worry about that. But so I go up to Peter Davison and I meet him, my hero from my childhood, right? And I think the best thing I can do is tell him that he is my hero from childhood. So there I am, this geeky 18-year-old, I think I was. And I say to my hero, Peter Davison, Peter, you were my hero as a kid. And he looks at me and goes, oh, okay. And I said, and I thought he doesn't believe me. And I really want to like impress him. So I was like, no, when I was a little kid, I thought you were fantastic. He went, yeah, all right. And I thought, I haven't convinced him enough. So I'm going to tell him again. So I said to him, no, honestly, when I was 8 years old, I loved you. Yeah. And he went, yeah, all right, piss off.
Oh, God.
And there are two ways to react to that. One, devastation. But what I opted for was, this is a great moment and a great anecdote. And I loved it. I loved that he told me to piss off. That's brilliant. Because you don't want them to be like, oh, thanks so much, I love you. You just want to tell you to sod off. Because that's really, that's why I liked him. That's what he was. Well, he didn't tell people to piss off. It's Doctor Who.
Maybe he should have done.
Yeah, he would have. Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah, what would you say to him now? What do you think he would say to you if you were to cross paths again?
I don't know. He's quite I quite like him because he's quite, I wouldn't say grouchy, but you know what I mean? He's like, he hasn't got time for anybody's shit. And I like that about him. And I would be delighted to one day be thrown out of his house for some reason. So if anyone can make a wish and make that happen for me, that is right.
I mean, maybe the audience can make that happen for you, Guy.
Maybe.
Hashtag, get Guy kicked out of Peter Davison's house.
Hashtag click the link down below.
Yeah, donate. You can have a
donate to Guy's Patreon to get kicked out of Peter Davison's house.
I would love that. I would love him to just be hurled out and get out. That's what I'd want him to say.
And he snatches the biscuits off you as you were drinking your tea.
Oh yeah, because he would do that.
Yeah. No wagon wheels for you. So would your favourite story, I'm guessing, would it be the more conventional Caves of Androzani?
Or the Earth That Shook with the metal men that were made of cyber?
Well, I would say that I don't really have a favourite one. Actually, I'm quite boring in that way because
you're very diplomatic.
Well, I have. The thing is, like, the good thing about Doctor Who is there's different moods, isn't there? Like, for me, if it's like winter, it feels very Hartnell winter. Like, it's so dark at like 6 o'clock, and you think, I'll put on a cozy bit of low budget black and white telly. That'll make me happy. Yeah. Or if it's like the summer, it feels more Davison because Davison has that vibe of more like summery. I don't know why. So
for cricket.
yeah, probably because it was quite, and it was kind of colourful without being Colin Baker colourful. So there's an element of brightness about it. And actually, I watched, mentioning Colin, I watched the Twin Dilemma the other day. I don't know why. And then I watched the Sensorites after it. So I had a double bill of what many people consider to be terrible. But there's a special place in my heart for things like the Twin Dilemma because I used to VHS tape them because I used to go to Cubs. And I remember coming home, and my mum was like, oh, I'm really sorry. I messed up the recording of the Twin Dilemma episode 1. And I was furious because I thought, Mum, it's like the first Doctor Who of this man. And then I watched it and was less furious that I had seen less of it because it was not good. But it's still like nostalgic, isn't it? Yeah, I'm sure you both have nostalgic episodes.
Yeah, obviously, like, because I was born in the wilderness years, so my nostalgia is aimed more at RTD's first era in terms of I remember growing up, watching. My mum never used to, for some reason, for series 1, she never used to let me watch it when it went out on the Saturday. I had to watch the repeat on BBC 3 on a Sunday, probably because she was watching Strictly. I don't know. She didn't want me taking over the telly. But yeah, I loved it because I remember I was at my grandparents' house when I stayed there for a week, and I watched Empty Child and Dr. Dances, and I absolutely shit my pants, but I loved it. Like, I was in a dark conservatory. It was pissing with rain, and it was just like, I can't go to sleep now.
It was made for it, yeah.
Was it the Victor Meldrew face mask bit?
Oh yeah, that's great, and that's like still holds up as well. Like that story is great. Like I love season 1, like series 1. Sorry, we should differentiate from them now. Like I've got so much love for that and that whole era because I grew up with that, and you know I took it with me into the Smith era. Like Matt Smith is my favorite Doctor. If I had like gun to my head, I had to pick one. It's Matt Smith. But
I was nearly in a lift with him once.
Yeah.
I went to when I went to the 50th. My friend Chris Johnson from CBBC, Yonko.
Oh, we love Chris on this podcast. Hi, Chris.
He's great, and he's such a nice man, Chris. And he had to do some of the hosting for that. So I can't remember what I said. Why don't I come? Because I'd already been on the Friday and Saturday, and he was doing this on the Sunday. And I said, why don't I come with you, and I can just help you out and stuff. So I ended up being backstage and stuff. And I remember standing with Chris's girlfriend by a lift, and behind us were Matt Smith and Gemma Coleman. And I turned around and I thought, I like his socks. And I thought that's a great opening line. So I was about to say to him, oh, I love your socks, when the assistant person took them away. So I missed him. And the second time I missed him, because when I lived in London, I used to have the same hairdresser as Matt Smith. And I remember one day he said to me, because I was talking about Doctor Who, and he said, someone I know has been cast in Doctor Who, but I don't know what as. And I said, oh, who's that? And he went, oh, he's called Matt Smith. And I was like, what, you mean the Doctor? He's like, yeah, I've cut his hair for years. And I never crossed over. I remember once going for my appointment and Matt Smith just came out and got into a car as I arrived. So me and Matt Smith, we keep missing each other.
This is the Doctor Who story waiting to be told. We got to get you and Matt Smith.
I know. Maybe we can get me and Matt Smith.
Peter Davidson's house looking for Matt Smith's address.
Exactly. I think me and Matt Smith need to get together, go to Peter Davidson's house, drunk with like cans of Stella and like a pizza that we've bought we dropped bits of, and bang on his door and demand to be let in. And we go in, and he's there. Look, he says, "Look, me, David Tennant, and my daughter, we're just having a nice time." And then Matt and David get into a fight, and I try and break it up, and I'm thrown out by Pete Davison.
Oh,
that's the perfect scenario.
But then Matt Smith joins you in the Jolly Fisherman.
Yeah. I think Matt Smith would then be kicked out. And I don't know what happens.
And then you go, sod it, let's go to Colin Baker's house.
Try them all.
You go for all of them one by one.
Yeah. Until we
Paul McGann last, because he's such an enigma.
Paul McGann, yeah, you'd never find him, would you? Well, you'd find him, but very brief.
Like proper off grid. I love Paul McGann. I love Paul McGann's Doctor.
He's
Paul
great.
McGann. I want to drink from the fandom that he lives in.
Have you ever met
Paul Rudd as well? Clearly,
maybe it's just people called Paul. Yeah,
he's Paul. Yeah.
So we crossed paths because you mentioned him before. Christopher Johnson was a big part of my childhood watching CBBC. I hope that doesn't make you feel too old, Guy.
No, I feel old every morning. So every day I drag myself to that mirror and look back, and it's like I've regenerated. It's like, oh yeah.
You're just regenerating slowly, and you're like, oh fuck this.
You look in the mirror and you go, oh yeah, I remember now.
Oh yeah. So I got onto his YouTube channel, and he was sniffing Doctor Who toys.
Okay.
As he so often does.
Really? What do you mean?
So he was. I think it was the when I should give context.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, what? I think this is very strange.
I think it was the Doctor Who sort of like B&M stuff, like the release of like the series 1 figures and stuff like that. And it was like new toy smell, but he distorted it so he sounded like a Cyberman. And I was like, where do I know this guy from? And then it all clicked. And then I started listening to his podcast. And there's certain guest appeared as Father Christmas one year. And it was Mr. Guy Lambert.
Oh, God, yes.
One of my favorite ever like podcasts I've ever listened to was you pissed as Father Christmas.
Oh man, he used to grab me. I used to. Yes, wasn't that when I just started heckling all the people listening to a show?
Yes,
I think.
a lot, and
I
it was
remember
so
that.
funny.
Thing about Chris is that he finds joy in anything, not literally anything, not murder. I'm aware of,
Not in John Barrowman.
but he's a very joyous person,
Yeah,
and so it's not that difficult to make him laugh because he enjoys lots of things. So when he laughs, you think, okay, how much can I push this? And I just found it really funny that he found it funnier and funnier the ruder I was about people. But I haven't drunk for about a year and a half now, and sometimes I think back now and think, God, the power of alcohol. It can turn you into a rude Santa Claus.
some wise kindred spirit. Isn't that when you sort of also talked about that? He'd said he'd never seen Time and the Rani, and you sent him like the VHS DVD and the Target novelization of it to his house.
No, I don't think that was me.
Was it not you?
Oh.
No, I don't think so.
Might have been one of the five.
I think it might have been Phil Fletcher who does Hack of the Dog.
Might have been, yeah.
I don't think it was
that
me.
was CBBC. Can we just talk about that?
You can talk about CBBC, but you'll be too young to remember most of what I did there.
What era did you start in?
So I started in 2003.
Wow.
The end of 2000. Funny enough, I actually started September 2003, and then 2 weeks later, they announced the return of Doctor Who, and all of my friends emailed me and were like, or Facebooked or whatever. They were like, "Is that why you've started at the BBC? Is that you couldn't tell us that you were going to work on Doctor Who?" And nowadays, I would be like, "Yeah." I would string them along, but I was like, no, it's not. But it was just really weird that I got to CBBC and then Doctor Who came back. But yeah, so I was there. It was Andrew Hayden Smith, Kate Heavener, Angelica Bell, Jake Humphrey. The channel had started the year before, so Jake Humphrey, Mahini, Sophie, Barney, Abs. I mean, we had a whole range. We had so many presenters because at the time there was the live on the channel, which was pretty much all day. Particularly in the holidays, it was live all day except for about an hour in the middle. And they were live on BBC One, and I think they were live on BBC Two in the morning. I can't remember. Certainly pre-recorded, so there was a lot of stuff, and so there were a lot of producers. We had a whole department, a whole floor of East Tower, which was next to Television Centre, and we had Blue Peter and Newsround were beneath us. Not in a. Oh no, I lied because Newsround was beneath. That's right, because I remember the day it got flooded. Blue Peter were above us, which is actually true. They were above us. And yeah, we were this whole floor of CBBS and CBBC presentation, as it was called. Yeah, and that I was there. I was at the BBC till 2010. So I did that era with Anne Foy, Gemma, all those kind of people as well. Then when that ended, we did Ed and Oucho.
Yeah,
and then
vivid in my memory.
That ended sort of, I think, around about May 2009. And then Ian and Hacker started, and I came back from a long holiday to produce them to start with in the September of 2009, and did that till sort of January 2010, and then I got put onto some other stuff to do. But I produced the live afternoons on either CBBC or CBBC One for quite a long time, and it was great.
Yeah, man, it's such a vivid part of mine, especially like from Ed and Oucho onwards. I vividly remember like all that version of CBBC, and it's just like, look, you made it like such a fun place to like be part of, because obviously I know Chris has spoken before about how, like, you know, it's about making the kids stay between the programs and all that, and that's why you'd have like the sketches and like all the little storylines and things, and you just don't really get TV like that now. Like it, it felt like it was made for the kids.
Well, I think the problem is that it's like most things. I don't know where all the money has gone in the world, but for some reason, nobody has any money. Like there's no money anywhere. And it's true of CBBC as it is of anything. You know, when you look at any of the BBC output, it's all been pushed down. It's all cheaper than it was. It's all a little bit less. Well, there's often less of it. And that fun, that added value that you would get. All right, I know CBBC still do links around the shows in a slightly different way. But the scale of it felt like an event. And that was kind of the theory, particularly when we used to do BBC One afternoons with Andrew and Angelica. You know, they were much more kind of teenage audience, really. And we would create like an event, a live BBC One event afternoon with the programs. And when we did Ed and Ouch of CBBC and latterly Ian and Hacker, it was welcome to the world of comedy, you know, that we are going to make you laugh. Because I don't know where I picked this up from, where maybe it was a boss or something, but I always used to say to presenters that, you know, their main job, and this is something that to think about if anybody listening wants to be a kids presenter, is when you look into that camera, you know, don't just picture a child, but picture a child and think about what kind of day they just had at school. Like sometimes you would have kids that had horrendous days or lived horrendous lives. And in my view, we were there to kind of just put a smile on their face. I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but that was our job, you know, to cheer them up and make them happy. And certainly when I was doing CBBC, which I think my tone became a little less popular towards the end of my time. But my attitude was we should be quite rebellious as well. You know, coming back to my Peter Davison Han Solo thing, we were quite edgy, I think, with like getting Greg Davis and Izzy Sooty and people like that in, that we wanted to push the limits of it. And we knew the line, but I just think as a kid, that's exciting when you just think, oh, it's a bit naughty, it's a bit dangerous. You know?
It's like it's crossed the do not enter sign, but it's that little instinct in that you just want to go over the limit. Like you just said, oh, it's a restricted area, you're not allowed, or not to heighten the situation, but electric fence, don't go over it. But the rebellious in you wants to go over it.
I mean, obviously there are
a different reason, but
yeah, I mean, obviously there are absolute things that you do not do, of course.
Yeah.
But the idea of Ed and Oucho, their positioning was very much that they were a sort of a slightly unwanted, because that was why they were in an office. I mean, that was Ed Petrie's idea to have the office set. And we created this sense of that they were deemed a bit rubbish by the BBC in a way. And they were sort of a bit rebellious against that. They weren't as shiny as the programs that were shown. They didn't have the money. They were all a bit kind of handmade and thrown together. And I thought that, I mean, I was not the first producer of Ed and Oucho. There was a different producer for the first couple of weeks. I'd actually left at that point, but I was involved in some of the development, particularly of Oucho. That was very much my kind of project with Joe Mace, who was the head of entertainment at the time. And when I came back, I inherited this sort of series show, really, that had tried things out, and we were like, okay, we're gonna really push it now. We're gonna really go for it. And we very nearly got Rick Mail nearly got Rick Mail. But what happened was, he wouldn't have ever known this, but we'd had people like Greg, as I say, Izzy, Marek Larwood, people like that. And we were like, we should get Rick Mail. Get Rick Mail to play like some historical character. And we just thought that was the best thing. And we went to the boss. And we were like, can we get Rick Mail? And Rick Mail was, I can't remember the exact wording that was said to me, but Rick Mail was kind of on a never hire him for children's television list. He was deemed too maverick, particularly for live telly. But I don't have many regrets, but that is one that I didn't push that, because imagine working with Rick Mail.
That would have been such a get as well. He would have been fantastic. It would have been so Blackadder-esque, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Because that was the style we went. I mean, we already had Greg Davis come in and play different ones, including Queen Victoria. And we would always put like a twist on it. So Queen Victoria was quite common. And she used to go, I am, what did she say? Not, I am not amused. She'd go, oh God, I am not amused. I can't remember how he phrased it, but it was slightly different. It was like her grammar wasn't very good. And Izzy Sooty came in and played what's the Let Them Eat Cake woman, Marie Antoinette. And then played Marie Antoinette. But I mean, we probably wouldn't do this now because it was a little bit condescending. But the idea with her was that she didn't want to be a royal. She wanted to be like, well, we played the Pulp song, Common People. She wanted, and I think we actually got her to deliver those lines. I want to be like common people. So we turned her into like, she had a baseball cap on backwards and stuff. So Ed and Oucho would ruin historical characters. Like they'd take them out of time and then destroy them and then send them back. And Henry VIII just wanted to marry everything. He'd pick up staplers and be like, I want to marry you, this delicious all this. So we were very heavily influenced, not knowingly, but by that sort of Blackadder, like how they had Queen Elizabeth being really thick and things like that. I think we were very influenced by that. Yeah. Look at me talking about
a lot of lore as well, wasn't there? Of like there was a lot of lore of like the CBBC office and the universe that occupied, because I think it was on one of Chris's episodes. I think it was with Ed when he on Out of the Broom Cupboard, when he talks about like, there was sort of like a Bible thing of like, oh, you can't go that way in the cupboard because that sends you back in time, sort of thing.
Yeah, because a lot of that, I mean, it could never be understated how much of a creative genius Ed Petrie is. Ed came in because we were on green screen at that point, because there had been no money. I mean, Alistair Hughes, who used to run that department, he should be praised by anyone of your age, because Alistair, who was my boss, he saved the whole presentation thing on CBBC from being totally got rid of, because we had a new boss from CBBC who came in and she was just cutting money left, right and center. And that's when things like Nelly Nutt and Exchange and things like that all got cut. And I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty sure he had a decision to make whether, if he was going to save our department, we would have to do it as cheap as possible. So let's do it on green screen just to keep it alive. And a lot of people hated that era, and we all hated it. We all just thought it felt really cheap. But he saved it. And then when that boss left very quickly after she joined, the new boss, Anne Gilchrist, came in and she revived it. And Ed said, I'm only coming back I'm not going to stand in front of green screen. I'll come back. I want a proper set. And that's when that all kicked off. And I'd already been developing a puppet idea. And Joe Mace, very clever man, he's now head of entertainment at ITV, entertainment development. And he came in one day and said to me, I've got it. It's a cactus plant that sits in the office. It's called Oucho and it's Mexican. And the Mexican bit was the only bit that changed. So there were lots of these really smart people that just had ideas, and it was great because we could just do them, So Ed Petrie, I mean, it's such a shame that he isn't kind of running. Like if Nickelodeon was still going, he'd run that and it'd be amazing.
Perfect for that.
Yeah, he is brilliant and was fantastic. And without that, of course, you wouldn't have had Ian and Hacker. I'll tell you a story about. Do you mind if I ramble? I'll tell you a story about Phil.
I love this. We're just loving listening to you. When are
you going to talk about Rogue? When is he going to talk about this?
We're not going to talk about it.
Yeah, 20 minutes. Phil Fletcher. So Warwick Brownlow Pike, who performed, or was Oucho's assistant, I should say. He was genius, brilliant, fantastic guy, super smart, works on Sesame Street now, brilliant. So one day we had some new cacti puppets made so they could have Oucho's friends come in as guests, so we could have guest cacti. And we called up. So he said to me, I've got a mate called Phil, who's brilliant, lives in Wigan. And I was like, okay. And he said, call him up because he'd be fantastic. So I call up Phil. And I said, all right, we're doing this cactus puppet and blah, blah, blah. And he said, do I have to come to London? I said, yeah, you have to come down to London. He was like, oh, okay. Well, he said, look, I'm a bit busy at the moment. I said, oh, what are you doing? He says, and I can't remember if it was, well, I'll go with the one I think it was. He said, I'm looking after some whippets. And or maybe it was ferrets. I can't remember. But I remember thinking, okay, so the scenario is that a producer at the BBC is calling you from London to ask you to come on television and perform a puppet, and you're concerned that you might be a bit busy looking after your ferrets. This is not quite the showbiz world that one would anticipate. But anyway, he came down and did it and was fantastic. And that got him into the world of doing Hacker and what proceeded from there. So that time, if it hadn't been for Alistair Hughes, who everyone should just email the BBC and say, I've heard about this man, Alistair Hughes, he's brilliant. Alistair Hughes saved CBBC presentation. And without him, there wouldn't have been any of that. And Anne Gilchrist as well. Brilliant people.
So we really have them to thank for you being here then, really, because otherwise we wouldn't have known of you.
Well, yeah, probably. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And I've got them to thank for allowing me to have enough money to live in Soho and live a crazy life for a few years. And then just spent all of my money.
So when was it that you met Chris?
Chris was discovered on the internet
somehow. Like
prehistoric.
There's so many ways that could have gone. Chris was found by another producer on YouTube. Don't get me started on that. And they just kind of auditioned him and hired him. And I remember meeting him in the office and thinking, who is this guy? What's this all about? And he mentioned Doctor Who, and it was like, right, we are now going to be really good friends forever because we're going to talk about Doctor Who.
Forever and ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't seen him for ages, actually, having said that. But he would keep in touch. But he, from straight away, we were like, okay. And he just had such a great sense of humor. And I liked, and I still like about him, that he has his own unique way of seeing the world and wants to put that on screen. And it's quite frustrating, I think. One of the things I connected with him about was that sometimes other people don't get it and they won't let you do it. And yeah, I'm not going to go into the details of that, but there were times during that time when certain things that had happened would not happen anymore.
Yeah.
Which was odd time, 2010, very odd. But yeah, he was great, and we did the Karen Gillan thing, which everyone knows about.
Yeah, when he was in a cage, remember that?
Yes, which was Ed Peaky's idea, because we were talking about, how we were going to do it and stuff, and we were like, look, we have to do a kind of interview because obviously people want that. And Ed said, I don't know why he said, but we ended up hiring the Dick and Dom cage and putting Chris in it. And I just remember it was on Easter Friday, Good Friday. Yeah, I think it was. It was the day before. Yeah, Good Friday. Yeah. So the next day, Doctor Who was going out, and because it was Good Friday, we were toasting. We had a whole thing with Ed Peach, who was toasting crumpets, I think, or hot cross buns. Hot cross buns. That's it. He was toasting hot cross buns, and there we were doing this amazing interview with Karen Gillan, the star of Doctor Who, which is going tomorrow on BBC. Well, like a big deal, you know.
Mm.
And we do the link where Ed burns his hot cross buns, and he's going, "Oh, my buns." And the phone rings in the gallery, and I'm like, "Hi," and it's my boss. And bless my boss. I mean, he was a nice guy, but he sort of sometimes didn't quite see the bigger picture. So he said to me, "Please don't make jokes about burning hot cross buns because it's Easter." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And that was. I don't blame him. I'm not saying it's his fault for saying that, but it gives you an insight into the culture that was beginning to start at the BBC, where people were terrified of people complaining. So they would preempt certain things and say, we better not do that because someone will complain. And my attitude was, well, let them complain, because as long as it's not clearly offensive, if someone doesn't like a joke, well, too bad. In a way, you know, it's not like we were making outrageous jokes.
Yeah,
we're always going to offend someone, and we know nowadays in this day and age that's. I don't want to sound like John Cleese, but you know what I mean. It's actually very easy to offend people, but that became the thing that suddenly things started being crossed out of scripts because, oh, we better not.
Yeah,
and then I'd put them back in. And then
is that sort of like the beginning of the end of your time on it then? Is that what kind of started to happen?
Yeah.
Like, it's a shame because like that was such a there's a lot of people my age that like remember very vividly that era. So like you've without knowing it had such a profound effect on so many kids' lives, like with your jokes and obviously like you, Ed, everyone that worked on it. Like that's just to have that kind of lasting legacy that people remember that as well.
I love it.
It's quite rare for kids' TV, I think.
Well, I think all the presenters and everyone we ever worked with on it always believed. I remember sound engineers and stuff coming in, and there they were sat in our tiny little studio. They were used to working on Strictly because BBC had staff, camera people and sound people and things like that. So you would get these people come in, like a brilliant guy called Guy Rowland, who was fantastic. And he would be so enthusiastic, and he would come in and we'd be like, "Oh, what you been up to?" He'd be like, "Oh, I'm just been, working on the sound mix for the Dick and Dom." Remember they did that like kind of history comedy sitcom thing?
Mm-hmm.
And he worked on that. I can't remember what it was called. And he worked on that. And he came in and he loved us because we would do stuff live, and he'd like invent stuff and he'd be like, what kind of music do you want to hear? I'd be like, I don't know, just give me some options. And he'd be like playing different music. And we would just go, yeah, let's go with that. Let's go with the Terry and June theme or something. And I'm not saying he was the only one, Simon Daniels, various other people, but I just picked on him particularly because I remember his face when he just used to be so thrilled by it. And the sense that we knew that if we found it funny, kids would be like on the floor laughing. And that's all we wanted, other than to show off and get paid, which was great. But we were like, how can we make these kids have the best time and also have a good time ourselves? And yeah, so I'm delighted when I hear people. I joked about feeling old. Of course I feel old. I am old. But I absolutely love it when people of like your age go, "Oh, I remember that." And you go, yes, that it worked. Like the magic worked with you. It just makes me really happy. And if you want to donate to my Kickstarter for my pension, that was great. I had someone, actually, funny enough, I worked very quickly, I'll tell you this. I had someone who I cast on a children's cooking show in 2014 when they were 11. She got in touch with me the other day and said, do you remember me from the show? And I was like, yeah, I do. And she's actually now wanting to work in kids telly. And I've just asked her to help me do some auditions for this kids show that I'm doing, to help me like be my assistant kind of thing. So it's lovely that I feel like I have history, man. I have history. I don't think I have a legacy, but I definitely have history.
Oh, I think you definitely do. We will fight on the good Guy Lambert fight long into the millennium.
I'll be banging on it when I'm homeless. I say this to my nephews, actually. I say, when I'm homeless and I'm like 70, will you take me in and give me some food? And that's what I'm gonna do to you.
That's good. That's fine by me, Guy. Welcome.
Yeah, I'll say, remember
as long as you bring Matt Smith, Peter Davison, Chris Johnson, and some pizza.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do about that. I think McGann probably will. He'll probably step aside that one.
He probably doesn't even have a phone. He probably just has like 2 cans on a string. Like
what? Where did that come from? But you can imagine him like. Have you ever met him, Paul McGann?
I've unfortunately never met any of the doctors at the moment.
Not currently. No.
Paul McGann, I met him at Wigan Comic Con with my friend Danny. It's just the nicest man in the world. And you know when someone is so relaxed, you are convinced that they are not actually on the ground. They're just slightly floating above the ground. He has that quality about him. Well, he's just so relaxed. And he's
calm and placid.
He's so joyful. Yeah, he's just got joy on his face. He loves it.
Yeah, I love that he loves Doctor Who as well, considering how much of a rough time he would have gone through in the 90s just to not get his series made. Because I love the TV movie.
Yeah, same.
I will watch that a lot. I've not delved into enough Big Finish to sort of get more of an idea of his Doctor, but I do love what I have of him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You've listened to a lot of Big Finish, haven't you?
Yes. Basically, I got into Big Finish because of Mr. Paul or Mr. McGann and his voice. Just when I think of Big Finish, the first voice is Paul. It's his voice. Even though I never get to meet the man. Just a shout out to Paul McGann. He's not watching or listening to this, but
he's peering through our windows right now.
You never know. He could pick it up on the ether, just sort of float. I could just imagine him on the beach, just looking out to the sea, and suddenly he hears it and goes, "Oh, that's me.
That's me. This podcast, it sounds perfectly."
Oh. and then just walks off happily.
He does. Like, he just stops as soon as the episode ends. Just carries on with whatever he was doing.
But there's a good lesson with McGann in life, which is he could very easily be really bitter about it, couldn't he? And be like, "Oh, yeah, it screwed me over. I never got to do a proper series." But he's just like, his attitude. Not that I think he's ever literally said this, but his whole approach seems to be, "I was so lucky. I had a great time. What an amazing thing that happened to me." And never mind that it didn't last any longer. And there's a good lesson in that, which you're too young to think about. But certainly when you get to my age, there's a lot of people who are quite bitter about a lot of things. And, there are certain things that I could be bitter about, and I'm not, because I was at the time and I got it out of my system. But also, you know what? It's like this whole talking to you about the CBBC thing, which I don't do a lot because I feel like the thing I want to define me actually will be later in my life. But we were so lucky, and pretty much every presenter and anyone who worked on any of CBBC, they will say how lucky we were. We were so lucky to do that, and what a blessing. Yeah.
So that's a really nice roundabout way to sort of like come back to that. And so like obviously like through you know, my enjoyment of, you know, your era of CBBC, I found Chris's podcast, found you, and then it was it 2018 Doctor Who on Twitch was like streaming?
Yeah, it was, because I looked it up when William Russell died, and it was 2018, which I can't believe.
Wow, that seems like so long ago. And there was like episodes where you would be in the chat and like everyone would kind of just be like, oh my god, it's Guy. Oh, and then like,
were people like, who was that? Were they drunk? They know who I was.
I think it was a lot of, you know, it was a lot of us that had probably listened to Big Damn Cast and then immediately just seen the Guy Lambert and then like, oh my god, it's him, the man, the myth, the legend. I do remember once that like, I think it must have been when the Five Doctors was being streamed. And I said something. I don't remember exactly what I said, but you literally, your response was kind of, I must, you know, for legal reasons, state that I did not, in fact, kill Richard Hurndall.
Oh my god! Yes, because we did Chris and I did a thing about that, didn't we?
Oh, good time, really good time. And obviously, the Horns of Nymon being my favourite classic Doctor Who story.
Yeah, what's this about? What's all this about?
Well, please, what is all this about?
I watched it for the first time on the Twitch stream, and then like I'd spoken like with you about it because you was in the chat, and like I think we got onto the subject of like it's the point where Tom Baker's twisted K9's head round, and one of us said that there'd always been sexual tension between them, and then you sent me a list immediately of all the shit Doctor Who stories that you said I had to own.
I don't remember that at all because I was probably drunk. I used to drink not a lot. I wasn't alcoholic. I don't have a problem, but
this isn't an intervention, Guy. You can drink as much as you want.
It's not part of my 12-step program. But
yeah, this is another podcast.
No, I just used to enjoy a glass of wine. It was nice, and you know, and I would do that. I remember that Twitch was so great because it was like a whole week, wasn't it?
Mm. And loads of new fans discovering this version of the show.
Yeah, and loving William Hartnell, which is really extraordinary when you think about who he was as a man in real life. And, you know, Maureen O'Brien and other people tell stories, not like it's gossip, it's fact, that he was quite an unpleasant, quite bigoted man. And yet, of all the Doctors, people of your age and younger were like, we love him. He was, and that's that weird thing, that grandfather thing that Verity Lambert that came up with, you know, that worked on a whole new. It's so strange, and that's why when they colorized the Daleks, which isn't really my kind of thing. I mean, they did it brilliantly. It's not really my thing to watch colorized versions or special editions. I don't really like that, but it was amazing how this black and white show that was in SD, you know, wasn't even like had been remastered, and yet it landed with people. I loved that. It was great.
Yeah, especially when you talk about obviously like William Russell dying recently and stuff like that. Like I love how kind of people will just rediscover more and more of Doctor Who because there is so much obviously to draw from. Like myself, like the first classic story I watched was the Five Doctors, so I do have like a really strong love for that, because I think I went to the Doctor Who experience when it first opened, when it was up in London before it moved to Cardiff, and that was like the first classic DVD I bought, and then from then it was like I'm gonna, you know, find more of these gems like within this. So like, you know, all the Third Doctor stories and like everything else that I've got. I've now got, you know, too much shit and not enough space to put it. But like,
yeah.
I just love that there is, like you said earlier, like there is something for everyone, like at different moods, like, you know, whatever, you know, day, season, time, like you can find a Doctor Who story that you can just sit down and sort of like comfort watch, really.
Yeah, and that's why when people say, oh, my favorite is this, or I didn't like this, you know, it's not worth having a go at them or saying, oh, what's wrong with you, sort of thing, because it can mean different things to people. And I'm sure it's true. It obviously is true of things like Star Trek as well. Any of those kind of things that can you kind of love, and you know, I know there's a lot of criticism when people can't accept change in the show, and we'll probably talk about that when we talk about Rogue in a minute. But I think what people have to understand is that a lot of people love this show. It means an enormous amount to them.
Yeah.
And when you fiddle with it, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but because you have to. But I think there needs to be an understanding that some people, for various reasons, some of which may be their own psychology, they won't respond well to it. It disturbs them, it upsets them. And I think people need to be a lot more polite and kind. You know, I know it sounds cliche to say to be kind, but if someone is like, I love this or I hate this, I hate that. I hate it. It's ironic to say I hate it, but I hate it when people say, "Oh, the haters." It's okay.
You hate the split, like you hate the split. Like there isn't, like you say, there's no right or wrong answer as to what episode you love and as opposed to what episode I love. No. Like and dislike, hate is too strong of a word. Like I'm with you 100%, Guy. But like there are episodes that we could perhaps say like would be weaker without saying dislike or hate.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be behind a keyboard, like just to say people of today's generation seem to be very vocal on the like very opinionated, like, oh, this is clearly better than this. Oh, I don't understand why this and this and this, etc., etc. Like people seem to be more passionate as time seems to go on, as we all are heading to the older demographic. It just tends to be people are more, I don't know, just opinionated, but not, like you say, not aware or as accepting or as wanting to be understanding. Again, we weren't trying to make this such a human evaluation of the psyche, but
but it's true. I mean, I'm sure that, I mean, you know, everyone likes to pretend they're lovely human beings, but of course, absolutely every single person who is a Doctor Who fan will send a DM to another friend and go, look at what this guy's saying. What is he on about? I do it. I will happily admit that I send things to my friend and I'm like, what is he on about? What is he on about now? What is this? He loved this or whatever. What is he talking about? Or some nonsense theory. I'm like, oh, you know, because that's part of the fandom thing. But it's a very different thing to say it to someone's face or to reply to them and say your opinion is trash or whatever, because why do that, you know? And I think I find, because I'm older than a lot of the fans that are very vocal on Twitter, I find it really interesting how there's sort of different kind of scenarios playing out and different desires to be the first person to spot this, that, and the other, first person to work this out. Oh, I worked out that ages ago. Look at my quote tweet from 6 weeks ago and I worked it out and all this sort of thing. And that's kind of delightful, but I know a lot of the times it can spill into kind of arguments and things. But I have noticed this series, there's a slight return to what I didn't like about some of the Moffat era in terms of fandom. There's a little bit of the idea that if you didn't like it, it's because you didn't understand it, because you're not clever enough. I noticed that with the episode that's just gone out. Someone kind of said, if you don't understand it, you're stupid, sort of thing. And I really don't like that idea that Doctor Who is about being intelligent enough to understand it, because it's not bloody Shakespeare
at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a pretty light-hearted family entertainment show.
Yeah, family romp. Yeah,
exactly. It's not supposed to be an exam.
God damn!
Imagine revolving
6 years worth of exams. God.
Yeah, if you're sitting there going, "Well, I knew it better than you," it's like, well, what are you getting out of this? But I kind of find that fascinating anyway. That I'm sure someone's listening to this now going, what is he on about?
There's someone typing angry comments at us right now, probably.
Yeah, he's such a boomer, old man.
But as you so beautifully sort of brought it round to series one after season one. Sorry, I keep forgetting what name it is.
Season one, series one, segment one.
So how are you getting on with the Shooty Gatwa era 15th Doctor? I mean, we can briefly, if you want, talk about the return of Russell and like the specials and that, like this version of Doctor Who now. How are you enjoying it? Sort of, have you got any standout moments? If you do talk about the Legend of Ruby Sunday, Connor still hasn't watched it because he's saving it for next week.
What? What?
Yes.
You still haven't watched the one that went out? How can you not have watched it?
Yeah, no, I haven't. Purely because me and George, side plug, shout out to Cineworld. They're doing the finale at our local cinema, and I'm with the willpower, I'm saving myself for the finale and to watch both episodes back to back and to be in the oh my god moment, because I've heard good reception about episode 7, like very spoiler-free reception about it.
Yeah.
And of course, we could all sit here and theorize. I mean, if you two want to talk stuff, I'm quite happy to leave the studio.
No, because I think it's more fair for people listening that we stick to the one we're talking about, because I think if you've tuned into this, you don't want us talking about something maybe you haven't seen yet. I'm just amazed that you've avoided spoilers. I think that's really impressive.
Well, no, I don't. Well, YouTube is the only platform where, again, things have come up, but YouTube's the only platform I have for issues with personally, where I'm like, and I'm like, delete, clear notifications before I get a chance to process what I've just read. But because I don't use X. We don't use X. No, I'm not the most active on any of the social platforms, really. YouTube is the one that I spend time on, admittedly.
Have you had the ending ruined? Do you know?
I know nothing.
That's amazing.
Wow. Oh god,
I don't genuinely know the ending. I don't know how it ended. I don't know anything about what I feel like I should know. Put it that way.
Oh man, I'm so nervous now. I'm going to say something.
Brian Blessed's back.
Damn.
Yeah, King Ucarnos. I mean, who guessed?
The Naimon. That's why we talked about the Naimon. You weren't supposed to tell me, guys.
You rumbled us.
Oh man, I'm so worried. I'm going to say something.
Oh no! Honestly, don't.
I
can. You can delete it out of the recording, then pretend as if I've seen it or something, and then I can go. Oh, it's fine. We can sort it out in post.
Oh man, I'm terrified.
I can't.
But what were you asking me? No, you asked me what I thought of the season, weren't you?
Yes. So Shooty Gatwa, I mean, you could talk about David coming back as well, like sort of the newer, 2023 version of Doctor Who.
RTD2 as like the internet has kind of referred to it, as we refer to it as RTD2.
Well, I have a slightly different relationship to it than a lot of people, because for me, Classic Who was my childhood, my teenagehood. Even I was at university when TV Movie came out, and so any kind of sense of nostalgia is really that. When 2005 happened, as I said to you, I was at the BBC, and so I was very excited that it was coming back. And I remember being on the studio floor at Blue Peter when Chris Eccleston did his interview. I'd snuck in because I knew the floor manager. And so my relationship with that era was very much like I was working at the BBC and the show was on and I loved it. I was the one that suggested to Andrew Hayden Smith that he should apply to be in Doctor Who. And that's how he ended up being Jake in Rise of the Cybermen. So I had that kind of connection there. So it was different. So anything that's gone beyond that, sort of Capaldi, Jodie, etc., I look at slightly differently. Like it's a show that I watch, but I'm not as obsessed with
or passionate about.
I'm passionate about it, but I'm not I don't particularly buy certain things, whereas I will just buy all the collection sets and watch them obsessively because that's my childhood.
That's your jam.
Yeah, but that's not to say I don't like this new series, because I love the whole new series. And what I love about it, what I find really interesting and sometimes frustrating, is the fact that it does try and be different, and sometimes that really works, and sometimes it really doesn't. I wasn't like massively happy with the Timeless Children thing. I found that really difficult because it's kind of like if you, this is a bit over dramatic, but it's kind of like if someone in your family died and you found a photograph and you were like, who's that other person that I've never seen in a photograph before? And they go, oh, that was Bob, your mysterious uncle that we've never talked to you about. Like, well, hang on a minute. What do you mean? You're changing my narrative of my childhood now. It will sort of felt a bit like that, you know, not as dramatic, obviously, but it was.
No, I wasn't trying to downplay. It's just that is just a funny. It's just a funny conversation.
But it is, isn't it? It's like someone going, "Oh, you know that thing? Well, actually, this was going on," and you're like, "Oh, okay, that's a whole different perspective." And it really did, you know, changed everyone's perspective on the entire classic era because he was no longer the first Doctor.
Number one, yeah.
And even if you do, oh, I'm not going to believe it, I'm not going to pay attention to it. It cannot do anything other than alter. Like when the three Doctors appear, you're like you just sit there going, well, they're not the original three.
This could be 34, 35, 36. It doesn't have the same
exactly.
to it, but
yeah. God knows how many children
you
killed before you know we got happy bumping them off. So it kind of was a bit awkward. But I've learned I think actually that did me a favor because it gave me a slight distance in a way. So when Tennant came back, I was just delighted that it was him and Catherine Tate. I was like, no matter about the characters, it was just like, this is fantastic that those two people who are brilliant, and I'm astonished no one has ever launched a show with the two of them together, because that is absolute dynamite, those two. So just having them back, and then obviously a little bit of Bernard Cribbins, bless him, and other people, I just really enjoyed that more than anything. And the Toymaker was fantastic. That was really good. When it got to things like bioregeneration, I was kind of like, okay, let's roll with that. But Ncuti Gatwa, when he was announced, I sort of knew him from Sex Education, but I hadn't seen a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, well, this is exciting and new. And then the Disney thing and all that. And I thought, okay, this is like a big new era for it. But at the back of my mind, mainly because I work in telly, I could see that they were running real close to the clock on getting it made. So my expectation for season one was this isn't going to be quite the shining thing that they want it to be. You know, this has been rushed. Doesn't mean it's going to be bad, but it's going to be rushed. And I think you can sort of see that a little bit in that Ncuti's fantastic. Millie Gibson has really owned it, I think, particularly 73 Yards, where she just she just drove the show for 45 minutes.
Considering as well, to add to that, that was her first script that she read and supposedly filmed. So that was kind of like day one, this is your episode, own it. And, you know, so far she's killed it.
Yeah. And the one you haven't seen yet.
Oh, damn.
She's fantastic.
Yeah.
Damn, I must not tell you anything. But
I must not tell lies.
Oh, it's so difficult. So, but I think one of the things I've really enjoyed about it, and not enjoyed about it so much, is how experimental Russell is trying to be with it. He's clearly, and he kind of said this in the Unleashed one with him and Moffat, there was a bit of a talk between them where they were kind of both saying, we're a little bit bored of doing Cybermen invading the Earth kind of stories, which on the one hand I can go, yeah, you're right, there's been a lot of those, But on the other hand, I sort of think, yeah, but I like those. You know what I mean?
I know the saying is you can't please everyone, but we can't even please ourselves. We don't even know what we want anymore.
No, Doctor Who fans don't know what we want, do we? Because like if he'd brought back, say episode 1 had been Omega, right? Everyone would have been like, I can't believe it, he's starting, it's what an old hat, you know. Oh, the new viewers are not going to know. Oh, blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
so
in the audience, yeah.
But then because he didn't do anything like that, everyone's like, oh, where's this, where's that, where's the other thing? So I think what he is trying to do is create something quite new, quite significantly new, and I think he's just finding his feet with it. And I think there are episodes that have really worked and ones that maybe haven't quite worked for various reasons. I thought Dot and Bubble was a good idea. I think the problem with it was that there wasn't enough Doctor and Ruby, really. But that's not his, you know, that's scheduling and all the rest of it. What have you thought?
So aside from Space Babies, I say we sort of do like a weekly sort of overview of sort of episode by episode, like with our guests of the week and stuff. But essentially, aside from, like, as I keep sort of reiterating, aside from Space Babies, I've just liked the feeling of, well, again, we don't all sit down and watch terrestrial TV on a Saturday evening because you can consume it in so many different ways now. You can stream it at midnight on Friday. You can watch it on the Sunday afternoon. You can, it's all on demand. You can watch it whenever. There isn't that same feeling of, oh, I've got to be there 6 o'clock with my family, like watching it like with your popcorn, like as if you view Doctor Who like a movie. So there's been some times where I've been up late at night and I've kind of gone, oh, like say with Rogue, like this episode, I did watch it at midnight just because I was wide awake. It certainly wasn't my bedtime, and quite frankly, I sort of saw it and I thought, oh, let's just see how it begins. I wasn't planning on watching all of it, but it did kind of grip me. But aside from Space Babies, like RTD2 so far, like going over the 60th, like I've liked everything so far for the most part. There's been episodes, again, weaker than others. There's some big experiments that Russell's done this era that have like worked with for us two massively. And again, as it's sort of been going weekly, like gone week by week, I've liked the feeling of just going into something completely different each week. Not from the plot sense of being able to predict it, because again, you could just read, if you were that diehard, like passionate thing, you would read all the leaks and things beforehand, and you would kind of decipher it. But I've liked, whether it's been a Friday, Saturday, Sunday afternoon, I've just liked going into Doctor Who every week and just enjoying being part of a different ride. It feels like an exciting theme park, and I just want to know more about the rides each week. Yeah,
and you've got to admire someone for going, you know what, we're going to do different things with this show.
That's the sorry to cut you off, but that's the thing about RTD, because we've already had him as well. He could have quite easily gone back to 2005 to 2008 and done what worked, done the biggest hits, and done the same stuff. But I feel like that era and this era are two different people. Yeah, it's the same name. How's that possible? Has he regenerated perhaps in between between his runs of the show? I've enjoyed both runs because they are quite different.
Yeah, I think it was, and I think he would probably admit it, not that he would publicly. I think starting with Space Babies was a mistake. I think it set an odd tone for it, because it's kind of like we're in a bit of a situation where almost every episode feels like it's a Love and Monsters in a way. Do you know what I mean? Or a Blink, where you're like, this is the odd one. This is the odd one out. And because they've all felt like that, sometimes you're not quite sure. You sort of crave like a Dalek episode or something, don't you? You sort of go, oh. And then it's not that. And you think, okay, I'll go with you on this. But it is slightly... Which is not, of course, to say any of the episodes are bad or anything like that, but it's so different that I think sometimes that's why I think Moffat did pretty well with Boom, actually, because and of course this one we're going to talk about. This one feels a lot more traditional.
Yeah. No, traditional. I like that. Pun intended as well because of the past setting. Yeah, traditional. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like you've both said, like I've really enjoyed Shooty and Millie. Their chemistry is great.
Yeah,
I'm really growing to sort of like know this Doctor. Like there's been with Jodie, it kind of took like I'm not like bashing or anything, but it was kind of like with every Doctor you have the moment where you're like, that's them, that's their character, that's this incarnation is that.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've had that a lot sooner with this one because Russell's obviously come in and gone, right, I want to do this, this, and this. Like you say, I want to shake it up. I don't want to just do the greatest hits. I want to, do it how we would make it now and make it compete with the likes of Stranger Things and stuff and make it be, a hit.
This big deal.
Not just for weekly, but also like people that binge it, people that want to stay up till midnight for the release. Maybe the weakness of Space Babies is why he dropped 2 episodes at once.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Because Devil's Called is, completely superior to the first one in every way.
Yeah.
Devil's Called feels like the statement piece, doesn't it? It feels like him saying, this is what I want to do with this show.
Yeah.
Whereas Space Babies didn't like a lot of it,
but it was episode 1.
Yeah, and it was, and again, I'm not saying it was a bad episode. I just think it was not the best one to start with because a lot of people were like, oh, well, it's like the old Russell series, you always start with the slightly frivolous one. But it's like, yeah, that's okay if your show was on last year and was getting 8-10 million viewers and you gently warm people back into it. But it doesn't work so well if you're launching a new series on it. I think that it just didn't, it just didn't feel bold enough in a way. I don't know how to describe it really.
It sort of felt a bit like basic, a bit vanilla, just sort of like if you wrote a generic Doctor Who, because there wasn't many flourishes. It was kind of just like they go to space and they deal with this thing. It wasn't like sort of an intriguing element, like sort of maybe like interesting concept and bad execution possibly. But then
I think as well
Devil's Called straight after that, which is such a like tonal shift and gear change.
Almost a different show, like in terms of presentation and how it made us feel going from Space Babies to Devil's Called. There's no resemblance. It literally felt like I was watching 2 different programs, like in a nice way. Like it felt drastically different, but in a good way for us.
Yeah, and I think you can forgive a snot monster, which is quite a divisive idea, isn't it? It's that's a difficult thing to land. You can sort of forgive that if you've had, say, 2 episodes where it hasn't been like that, where you go, oh right, okay, this is the one for the young kids kind of thing. You can but when it's the first one, it's very difficult to forgive it because you think, oh no,
it's almost first impressions. But then, not to sort of defend or stick up for sloppy episode order or release schedules, but they would say episode 1 of this run, if it isn't Star Beast like 60th special number 1, it would be Church on Ruby Road, and that felt very more like. Of course, it was the introductory episode to this run, but it felt like your typical grandiose big scope episode 1 that made you feel something. Like Space Babies on paper, it's episode 1, season 1. So if you were dumb enough to, or moronic enough to sort of skip the introductory episodes, then this is kind of be your first impression. And it doesn't leave a bad one, but it just kind of leaves a impression.
Yeah,
like
that's exactly it.
You wouldn't know how to process it, or at least I wouldn't. Like I wouldn't know how to process it.
It sort of makes you think, oh, is this where the show's going? Whereas actually what the show is doing is giving you one that isn't where it's going, because it has to carry all the weight of all the exposition about who the Doctor is and what the TARDIS is, and all that stuff is weighing over it. So you can't have anything too complicated. But yeah, it's difficult that, and it's a weird one because like there's nothing wrong with it. Like it works. It has a beginning, middle, and end. The production design is great. The kids are very funny. But I think, just tonally, it was like, what could have been interesting is if you'd had a companion who was not nice. You know what I mean? Like if there'd been a situation where they were like, "Oh, babies," and really kind of like hated being around the babies in a way, it would be a bit more of a character statement. Whereas Millie is just really nice. And
like how to sort of pluck I forget the actress name, even though we were praising her. Oh no, last week / 2 weeks ago / last year when we recorded these episodes. Actress that did Dot and Bubble. I can't think of the name. The main character. Like how you Callie Cook. Yeah, how you got her character that literally was essentially a snob and would like it was we just go, "Oh, babies!" Like, "Oh, why do I want to do that?" Like literally that idea, but with that sort of character, that sort of architect throughout the whole episode, then that would have maybe have led more of an impact on us, a message to the audience. Like that would have worked, I think, much better.
Yeah, she's a really good character, that Lindy.
Yeah.
And I think so far, who knows what happens next week? So far, she's my favorite character of the entire series. I think she's such a morally complicated character that had so much depth and was brilliantly played, and was just, you kind of want more from her. I was so intrigued by her. I think it was one of Russell's best character pieces, actually. That. Yeah, imagine her with the space babies going, "Oh no, kill them!"
Yeah, kill them all.
Well, she wouldn't have like wanted to be in the same room as the Doctor anyway. So,
well, no, but which again in itself could have been quite interesting. You know?
Yeah, no,
but maybe a bit too much. Maybe a bit too much, but
possibly, yeah. But no, in terms of this, like, it feels very like series 1. Like, there's not any episodes that I think are, naff. I think it's just kind of like maybe this one, like, Space Baby sticks out as the weaker of the bunch so far. But I've enjoyed what we've had from Russell in terms of him trying something new. I've enjoyed, having Moffat and Kate Herron and what's her face? Whoever else wrote this one?
Oh, I forgot.
It's nice to have the other writers as well, their voice in it, and I hope we have more, different writers in season 2, so that it's not just like, why is Russell writing everything kind of thing. Not that that's a bad thing, but just a few more flavors in the boiling pot for Shooty to sort of get his teeth into, because him in Boom was just like mesmerizing. It felt very Capaldi-esque in terms of his performance in that one.
What, in Rogue?
In Boom, sorry.
Oh yes, very much so. Yes.
Yes, Kate Herron and Brian Redmond. We should actually, over an hour in, talk about Rogue.
Let's talk about Oucho's cousin. Let's talk about
yeah, this reminds me. It's a bit like when was it? Was it what's the first Patrick Troughton story? I completely forget.
Power of the Daleks.
Power of the Daleks. Yes.
Power of the Daleks. The classic.
What? This reminds you of Power of the Daleks.
Isn't it one of the audio things of it? It's like Tom Baker going, "I don't remember what incarnation I was, but let's talk about this story from years ago." It's kind of like that, but we're just talking about puppets.
I don't know what you're on about, but I liked it.
No one ever. I don't even know what I'm on about, Guy, half the time. So Rogue, the last episode before the big, double before the big double-handed finale.
Before the Rani comes back, yeah.
Oh, the Rani.
Yeah.
It's actually Seth from Dark Water and Death in Heaven. It's Chris Addison's back. I like the historical stuff. I like that this, like, with that, being more general on it, like, it felt very like The Girl in the Fireplace. The Doctor, falls in love with someone like, out of their time, who's very much their match. Like, that if they travel together, whichever way round they discuss it, either him being in the TARDIS or, the Doctor going with him on his spaceship, like, they would just be like out of this world, to pardon the pun, in terms of like their chemistry. Like, like the Doctor falling in love, I think is such also like it's him being sort of very open and fragile and sort of like vulnerable, exposing himself. That's the word I was looking for. I don't know why I said exposing himself. I can't talk about that.
I don't remember that scene. Was that cut?
But him being in love is such an interesting concept, and we see it so rarely, really. And it's always sort of like the companion that is the one that either falling in love with the Doctor as a character or falling in love with the secondary character is always more common. But like this, I loved. Like I know Jonathan Groff, more musical theatre background, so maybe we could have had him in Devil's Called, like instead, and had him sing, because I know his performance wasn't exactly, as you would say, fluid. But I liked what we had here. I like, maybe the pacing was a bit off because it was quite a slow one. Like, not a lot happened in the runtime. It was kind of like evil pigeons, big triangle, come and find me.
That sounds like the Five Doctors. Yeah, it was. I remember watching the open because again, I haven't watched any of them at midnight because I don't like. I want to go to bed before then.
If my kid's asleep, then I'm asleep.
I'm more of a sort of up at 6:30 person. So I watched this. I always watch them on Saturday morning. But yeah, I remember seeing that opening, thinking, "Oh, hey, here we go. This is Doctor Who." You know what I mean? It's like the opening scene into the titles. It was very RTD era kind of stuff, and I sort of was sold on it from then on. And I thought, do you know what? We'd had weeks of picking shows apart and people going, oh, blah, blah, blah on Twitter and stuff. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to roll with this. I'm just going to let it happen. And yeah, I'm interested that you found it really slow. I thought it was quite, I mean, it's certainly slower than the one you haven't seen yet. But I quite liked the way that Ncuti started getting his sonic out and doing his scan, as people have called it, his gaydar scan, and he grinder, I should say, not
that's a different version of the show. The Doctor's on grind.
Yeah, that's a joke for people over 40. But he's scanning, and then he sees that guy, and there's that slowness to it, and that sort of intrigue of where is this going. And I think you guess from the start, don't you? You pretty much go, right, okay, I think these two are gonna get it on in some way. Yeah, so I think you buy into. I think there's a lot of people. I know Toby Haydock. He's sort of. Wouldn't say he didn't like the episode. Don't want to put words into his mouth, but he put a podcast out where he was saying he struggled because he doesn't really like his Doctor falling in love. He doesn't like that.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, and I'm sort of in two minds about it because, and again, I think it differentiates new Who fans from classic Who era fans. Yeah. Because in my day, the Doctor was not having sex and not. I literally shuddered as I thought of Colin Baker having sex.
And you know what we do to alien spies. Oh no!
Just I literally pictured him in the TARDIS.
That's why he strangled Perry.
Staring at Perry. What a thought.
Why have we all gone to Colin and Perry?
I don't know. I immediately thought of that, him and talking to him in the Twin Dilemma. Because I tell you why, because of all the classic Doctors, of any of them that could have been the one that had a romantic thing with the companion, I reckon it would have been Colin.
Yeah,
because he was quite a not so much in the trial stuff, but certainly season 22 Twin Dilemma is very sort of sexual presence, I think.
Yeah, there's a funny like undertone riff in his newly discovered body and mannerisms, and he is kind of, in a sense, we're not discovering, discovering, but yeah, of course, he's just
A new
Yeah,
body.
he's got the he's suddenly realised he's very into his own appearance and how he looks and everything else.
perhaps more so at that point than any other classic Doctor.
Yeah,
Randomly, he's
because
very
the other
vain.
Doctors.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, John Pertwee was very into how he looked, wasn't he? But in a sort of like, I'm a dandy, whereas and Tom Baker just dishevelled. But Colin was very much like, you know, Colin was the macho man in a way, and you could have imagined a different era with him and the Rani, you know, having a bit of a kiss like Missy and Capaldi. Could well imagine that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Toby is right that us classic fans, when we saw Paul McGann kissing, it was like, oh.
That was when it started, wasn't it? You know, he'd finally hit puberty as a Time Lord.
Yeah. And I know people talk about, oh, well, of course he must at some point because he's got a granddaughter. But, you know, you sort of think, well, yeah, but I think it takes the show into a different space.
Yeah, it's kind of like like that was played with a bit in the Moffat era when it was like, you know, Amy and Rory banged on the TARDIS and that's how River has her regeneration abilities. It kind of was a bit like, that's a bit, you know, kids show, pull back a bit. Not literally Arthur Darvill, but...
Well, do you remember that I think it was a Comic Relief sketch where Arthur was, where Rory was under the console and looking up Amy's skirt?
Yeah. Yes.
And it was that weird thing, wasn't it, of that era that was everyone was very sexual.
Yeah, and and Amy fancied herself, and so did Clara in some DVD extras and stuff. And then there's that weird one, I think it's Comic Relief, when he talks, it's when he, you know, Matt Smith materializes in the room with the Call the Midwife characters and talks about how he used to fuck Pam Ferris.
Does he?
Yeah, literally. I can't believe you're a nun. I remember that night in like 1912 or whenever it was. Ding dong, and then thrusts his hips like a fucking Carry On character.
Oh my god, I don't remember that at all. You know, it's amazing that Moffat.
I think it was
like
that.
You know, Moffat was just like, what was he on? Was he
on Randy Moffat.
Yeah, I mean, bless him, he's a genius. But blimey, when you look back on it, you're like, how did they get away with this? So it's not, when people complain about Doctor Who kissing people, it's like, come on. I mean, Ncuti Gatwa kissing Jonathan Groff for like all of a few seconds, that's nothing compared to Matt Smith under a woman's dress at the beginning. Was.
And that wasn't even the show, that was just his home life.
Yeah, he was literally just hiding under a woman's dress. And you're like...
And how did he have to go to Cardiff?
And it's like that. So I think this whole romantic storyline thing, it's not my favorite, but I kind of liked how a lot of it was that sort of sexual energy, that kind of there was an aliveness to it, and I just really liked a lot of what then happened with them going in the TARDIS and all this kind of thing. I actually wish they'd done it a bit more. I thought it was a little bit tame in some ways. I think they could have really pushed it.
They did hold back on it quite a bit, didn't they? Maybe like it's the like, you know, the Disney Plus audience won't like it, but I love when they're showing off to each other about their various gadgets and ships. Like, oh, these things that you see here, honey, they're called surfaces. Like, like it was. And when the Doctor get flustered with the psychic paper and that was like, it says you're hot. Like, are you hard or am I hard? And he's like, I don't know what to say.
Temperature's rising in here.
Like all that stuff.
Yeah, I would have liked Ncuti to have slightly played that a bit more Matt Smith. You know, that awkwardness.
Yeah, because he's sort of a very confident incarnation, isn't he? So like him being like that is very sort of like, oh, this Doctor like doesn't really know how to handle, you know, the situation of where he fancies someone. You know, to put it bluntly. Yeah.
Yes, he could have come across a bit more. And this is not a criticism of Ncuti's performance at all. This is more direction side of things. That it would have been slightly more fun, I think, to have played up that Shooty was like a bit puppy dog about Daddy Rogue. You know what I mean? That kind of older man, younger man relationship thing. It could have played up a lot more of the naivety of that, and that might have been quite fun. But that's just my consider, my way I would have done it. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, how does it land for you guys? Because as I say, I suppose you're just used to the Doctor kissing people left, right, and centre.
Yeah, it's on our checklist every season. Like,
kiss someone required. Yeah.
But no, yeah, it's like I say, like I like them stories. Like I'm a big fan of like Girl in the Fireplace from series 2, and this felt very like akin to that, like the Doctor falling in love with someone and then losing them, which is the tragedy of his life is that he lives so long that normally people that even friends, let alone like lovers and stuff, like he outlives everyone. So he never gets someone that gets him sort of for long enough.
Yeah,
and even like you see that together, like as a team, like they would be great. And then that whole thing of like he's still out there, hopefully, and maybe not like an ongoing thread of like every week,
next season,
every
find him,
every week. Shooty Gat was like, I must go find Jonathan Groff.
Yeah,
but like just out there that maybe there is like that this incarnation's love, could be him. Like this can be like his River sort of thing, maybe.
I mean, what would River have to say about all this? Should she ever dare?
River would join in.
Oh my God, she'd be delighted, wouldn't she?
Yeah.
She'd be finding him first.
She would have loved if she'd have met up with Jodie as well, but yeah.
But it's interesting.
I really enjoy it. Sorry, guys, go on.
Interesting mentioning Jodie because I mean, poor old Yaz. She's the Doctor sits there on top of the TARDIS saying, "No, I can't be with you." Blah blah blah, and that really odd line where she's like, "I love traveling with you." And Graham and Ryan. Wow. Okay. But there's old Yaz.
Doctor, isn't she?
Yeah, and like see you later, Yaz. Just dump you there. Go and hang out with all Joe Grant and all the rest of them. And then next thing, Doctor Who is back, getting Donna a job at UNIT. And this poor old Yaz is out there unemployed. And
poor old Dan doesn't have a house.
yeah, exactly. And then Shooty's Doctor is off snogging this random man. Poor old Yaz. Gosh, she just didn't get any luck, did she?
No.
Not even a kiss.
Yeah. But then that sort of was like based off of what those two had seen, like the fandom sort of come up with, that there was elements that, suggested, in the writing and in the episodes that like Yaz was sticking around because she was falling for the Doctor kind of thing. And it was more of their insistence that like, maybe we can sort of play into this a bit more than Chibnall going, this was the plan all along, guys.
Yeah, they've kind of admitted that, haven't they? That they sort of...
Yeah. And he's less of a horny writer than Moffat, so it wasn't like yes, I'm going to make these two ladies kiss on screen for many minutes. It was kind of like, they're friends first, and maybe they could have been lovers had they got longer.
Yeah, I still think she was a bit cheated, but I think if she found out what Shooty's been up to,
she'll be pissed in the 70th,
and then she'll be like, well. And the Shooty's got to say to her, look, love, sorry, but I was trying to be nice about it, but you're just not my type.
Yeah, maybe even that. Yeah, that'd be good because Shooty's
in a different way.
Say that.
Yeah.
But, apart from like that, like element of the story, which was probably the most compelling part of the episode, we get to the pigeon people. The cosplayers, the pigeon people, great idea because it's also like an allegory for the fandom and things like that, and fandoms of big franchises and TV shows and whatever.
Geeks.
Russell is good at finding that sort of element of his real life, and I'm gonna exaggerate it to the
script.
Well, obviously, like I'm assuming he gave Kate and Bryony the sort of idea of like this is where, like maybe like the overview, but like the way they sort of like ran with it. Like it felt, like you said, Guy, like a bit more of a traditional Doctor Who episode, but the enemy wasn't the focus. It was the love story, which kind of, it kind of felt like an episode of two halves.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, because we had Ruby off doing the kind of chat, bit of the Rose-esque sort of getting to know people thing. And then him off with Rogue. Yeah, it sort of was almost, I suppose in a way, that was the clever thing, that they were both so distracted that they didn't pay enough attention to the problem that was going on around them, perhaps. Yeah, I liked Ruby in this one. I'm just remembering her. I like it. I think it works really well for female characters when they get a friend. I always thought that worked well with oh god, who was it I was thinking of the other day? There was one series where every episode they had I can't remember who it was, but I like it when they have that interaction. I think that brings a lot out of them. I think you learn a lot out of them from seeing their interaction with another woman. I don't know what you think of that.
Yeah, I'm with you in what you're saying, but I'm like, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of other examples that could have worked.
Yeah, there was one series where it felt like, and she commented on it and said she really loved it because she used to get a different friend every week. I can't remember who that was. Yeah. Oh, it was classic. It was Ace. Because in series 26, like in Battlefield, she gets Xiaoyong. In Ghostlight, she gets the girl that I can think of, the actress Catherine Schlesinger, but I can't think of the character's name. Then in Fenric, she's got the two girls that she hangs out with. Then in Survival, you've got her hanging out with the cat, where people kind of think there's a lesbian subtext, which probably there was. So it's quite nice when the young female companion teams up with another female. I think I just really like that.
Yeah. I was going to say now. I was like, what I was going to say. Yeah, Friends. Yeah, not just smart on the script, but yes, going back to the point of both characters being distracted worked really well. Had even Millie had her head screwed on and the doctor was off in love with Jonathan Groff, like I think even she could have solved, or would have been more aware and alert of what was going on, and the episode would have been a lot shorter than it was.
Yes.
You could say that about absolutely any episode, like, oh, if a certain character wasn't doing certain scripted things, and oh look, it'd be over in 2 minutes. But I feel like with this one particularly, clever. It was a necessary distraction. It was clever, but it was also necessary. Otherwise, the script would kind of just fumble on itself. They would have been like, "Oh, look, that lady's acting unusual. Oh, she's twitching her neck. She's the bird people." Oh,
yeah.
No need for the Yu-Gi-Oh triangle trap card. None of that magic. None of that. But yeah. But good, necessary plot stuff aside, and the romance, which was obviously the highlight for all of us in this episode. I was heavily engrossed in Millie's performance, but I really felt something when, for 30 seconds to a minute, I thought she genuinely had gone bye-bye. I thought she was killed. I felt it. I was like, bloody hell, this, 7 weeks, 6 weeks of this era has really sunk into me, because I actually really do care about Millie, like Ruby Sunday, as well as Millie. I did that, for me, just struck a bit more of an emotional chord than I was perhaps expecting.
Yeah, and I think part of it, because my dominant thought is because what's exciting about Russell being back is that I remember when he first did it, and he said there was no way he would ever kill a companion because he felt that the child audience would find that too distressing. And now you're like, well, is that the same rule? Do you, having had, particularly with Moffat, in inverted commas, killing off companions, are you looking at it the same way? And there was that moment I was like, will he do it? Is Russell going to make a statement by killing the companion, because she kind of got killed in Ruby Road.
Yeah,
in a way.
Yeah.
And I just thought, what if he does it? Like, that's going to be a hell of a statement to kill your companion. So I was really like, oh, what's he going to do? Yeah, it was good that. What did you think of the way it was resolved with Jonathan Groff Rogue doing that? Because I'm in sort of two minds about that.
What okay, you say two minds. I'm not to like rebut the question, but what half of your mind is speaking more to you now? Like, you more of the dislike, or are you more of the like, oh no, I like, in the sense I really want to see him again, or like, good, if he's gone, I don't want to see him again?
Oh no, sorry. What I meant was, well, I'll tell you why I mentioned it, because I remember thinking how differently that could have played had Millie used, she had like a kind of, was it an earring or an earpiece? I can't remember now.
Psychic earring in battle mode, and
yeah, whether she could have done something with that to get out of the trap, because it was kind of the Chekhov gun thing, wasn't it? With that, it was like, you've set this up. Will this now solve the problem? And I'm not sure whether that would have been cleverer than him grabbing the thing and doing it. What could have been fun, again, it's not a criticism, because I'm just kind of thinking aloud, like how I might have done it. I wonder if it would have been quite fun for her to have done it, but he did that as well, and actually turned out he didn't need to have done that.
More of the like, going back to the Doctor not having someone like to stick around for long enough, it will have then sort of played into the Doctor's suffering, like the internal suffering of, he finally having that person to connect with, whether it's like another companion or a potential lover, but then it plays into that a bit more, because it's even more tragic, because like you would have said, he wouldn't have had to have done what was necessary, but he still did it anyway.
Yeah, or if she'd gone to, he pushed her out of the way, and then she was like, I was about to do this thing with my earring, and he's like, oh shit.
Oops. Yeah, like proper Looney Tunes moment. Yeah.
But anyway, that's just, I'm not saying that makes what happened bad or good. I just suddenly thought that the other day that I mean, it sort of felt, how else are you going to get rid of him? Because if she had done it herself, you'd have been like, okay, well, Rogue now is here. What happens? Does he have to take him on board the TARDIS? Would
he have done a shocking out of character betrayal after the romantic chemistry between the two, going like, bye bye, Doctor, I will report, basically, because he was the con man, the bounty hunter, the non-Mandalorian-esque character, would he have been like, ta-ha, Doctor, I'm now going to go back to the guild and report you, and then he's not then going to find the Doctor ever again, because they're star-crossed lovers, but he was obviously in it for the money. That would have been a really sort of dumb, false betrayal, like, because exactly, if like we just said, if the third act didn't go the way it did, how would he have not gone on the TARDIS, or vice versa? How would you got rid of Mr. Groff?
Because that could have been interesting for, as you say, for him to go, I've got your coordinates, I know now, I can track you, whatever.
I know where you I know where you're sleeping. I know where you live.
Yeah, watch your back. And you could have said, someone say, I've got this thing offer. He could have had like a little device that said, offer come through, $1 million or whatever. The thing would be space dollars. And that thing of, he could betray him. That's quite interesting. Could have been.
I wouldn't have liked to portray it. It would have felt a bit too forced, considering we've already had them really sort of connecting and gelling anyway. If it was, well, I don't know. If the episode was shorter and it was earlier in the episode, I would have maybe bought into the shock betrayal. But considering what they already went through anyway, I wouldn't have personally bought the idea of Groff turning heel, like, to pardon the phrase. It wouldn't have made much sense for me. Like, I wouldn't have been a fan of that.
So were you happy with the way it went? That he
more than any ideas that I'm thinking of at the minute, I mean, I would have loved Mr. Groff to have been, he might be. No, I say he obviously isn't in episode 7. I'm assuming one and done appearance. He definitely isn't going to show up in the finale. For any viewers watching out of order, you know how wrong or right we are right now. No, obviously this is it done, and that's the loose thread across this era, not just for series 2 and any of the specials. You know, will we see the star-crossed lovers to an extent reunite? And that's the beauty of that thread, that it can go in any direction at any time. But no, I for the most part, I like how it is and how it's still open. It isn't, oh, I'm trapped in my Yu-Gi-Oh card, I've now gone to the incinerator, like it was implied that the Doctor was going to end up earlier in the episode. It weren't like, oh shit, I've now been melted and, you know, there's no chance of seeing you again. Like, I prefer that to what could have been his death.
I mean, well, because could be quite nice to have him back the next year or whatever, and there's a moral issue there to do with him being a bounty hunter, like, because the Doctor sort of the one thing I wasn't too sure I liked, but maybe it was part of this whole sort of first puppy dog eyes love kind of vibe, but when he said that being a bounty hunter was really cool, and I thought, I don't know if that is how I think the Doctor would think about it.
Yeah, the Doctor to say bounty hunting was cool. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. Yeah,
but then it might have been because he was trying to impress him. He was like, "Oh, you're so cool," you know,
space flirting.
And I'd be quite interested for them to pick that up and have him meet Rogue again. Not that he may or may not be in the finale. I'm not going to comment on any of that. But
is he the one who waits?
Well, you never know.
Yeah, I'll find out sooner rather than later. Yeah, I'll find out.
But at some point in the future, even if it's like a big finish or whatever, you know.
Yeah, big finish. Briggs, if you're listening, this is the perfect set to bring out one day.
Yeah, the Rogue set would be great. Different bounty, every week, different bounty hunter. Perfect. So I would love him to meet him and be like, "Oh my god, it's you, love, kiss, kiss, kiss." And then he's just been arrested because he's just murdered someone. And you're like, oh shit, I'm in love with this guy, but he's murdered someone. And he's saying, oh, but Doctor, I'm innocent. And it's like, are you telling the truth? You know, a bit of a manipulation thing there might be quite interesting. But obviously we'll wait and see what happens to him at the end of the finale, because, you know, maybe he's in that.
Maybe. Well, he does talk, you know, Rogue does mention, like, you know, the paperwork's really picked up since this new boss took over. So is that anything to do with, you know, the end and what's coming? We don't know.
We all know that Kate Stewart loves her admin. So.
Oh, wow. I was just thinking more, is this boss part of the Toy Makers Legion? Somewhere, whoever this boss is referring to, because we don't know what size or cosmic proportion we're referring to. It's obviously not going to be a normal, as much as Kate Stewart would be funny if it was just an Earth local boss.
Well, actually takes off her head and she's like, Rassilon.
And admittedly, you know, given who Kate Stewart seems to employ, I think Rogue would be a little bit too old for UNIT. Because
she does. Yeah. What? Where is Ruth? Maybe where is she? Like
in Geneva,
the role is a bit like the Professor Against the Dark Arts in Hogwarts. There's a new one every time UNIT turn up.
I do wonder whether that might be a recurring thing.
Yeah, which is a shame, because then you kind of don't get that. You know, with different doctors and stuff, the sticking point would then be, you know, the familiarity, which is, you know, UNIT and stuff are there to help the transition into Pertwee and so on. So, like, having, like, here's Kate Stewart with her 15th employee of the week. Yeah, but, you know, never say never. Like, Rogue could maybe be like head of recruitment, and that's why he's recruiting like young, and we just gradually get younger. I don't know.
Who's to say that UNIT doesn't live or go past Earth lives? And what's to say that the bounty company that he's working for is a fucked up intergalactic espionage version of UNIT, but gone rogue? You know, pun intended. You know?
Yeah, because we had Torchwood, didn't we, in different eras, and they've done that with Big Finish. Have it in the future, past, blah 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 blah. So yeah, I wonder what happens to UNIT.
like a cosmic unit, but perhaps not just to use gone rogue again, but like somewhere down the line of history and timeline, you know, some dictator has gone beyond Earth somehow, maybe through a TARDIS or some other device, and then, you know, it's basically set up base somewhere cosmic, and then set up unit to be this terror, like instead of a espionage, you know, it's an evil corporation that Mr. Rogue is working for. I don't know. That literally was just a thought off the top of my head.
Well, I mean, let's find out what you know, Susan Twist is all about.
It's really hard not to literally not to say. I'm just using all my brain power to not be like.
Question 3. Obviously, the guys in the audience, you probably have watched episode 7. Hooray for you! If you haven't, like me, you know, more willpower. We need more willpower in the community. Spoiler free. A question to you both.
Oh dear.
No. Did you see the twist coming? To quote that whole twist thing in The Devil's Cord, did you see the twist coming? Without
what?
Because there's always a twist. Like that's been the message of this season.
I would say on that, I did and I didn't, but I like how he also takes the piss out of other things that people have predicted. Like the way it's like, it's definitely going to be this because of this thing. Like saying it without it is basically like confirming that one of the things that we've seen on the internet isn't true. So it's like,
yeah, fine.
Some of the stuff he literally opened is like, well, maybe it could be this, could be the ending, and he's like, no, it's one of these ones, and it's interesting. Really, it was one of. I don't know if you felt the same, Guy. Like when that happened, it was kind of like I had goosebumps, like as the tension was rising in the music, and then it just ended, and it was like, no, I want part 2 now.
Oh, damn you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I definitely was like, I've thought of this a lot, actually, with this series, that I feel like when I was sat there on a Saturday morning at like 9 o'clock or 9:30 or whatever, watching an episode, I think, well, why can't I just watch the next one now? Like, I would have very happily, because there are only 8 episodes, I would very happily have just sat that first Saturday and just watched them all. And I think that would have been really enjoyable. And given the way that there are clearly storylines and characters and things that connect, I think that would be quite a rewarding experience, actually, and perhaps actually more rewarding than watching it week by week.
Possibly, yeah. Maybe it'd be a thing of like, because there is something that we would, you know, ask you about possibly returning for that. That maybe if we, you know, when the series is done, like you get and watch the 8 episodes again, like do you get something different out of it? Maybe like because I think not to fucking keep bashing on it, but like with Flux, it felt like that series was made for drop it all on day one and then watch it all because so much was happening, but then we were still watching it week by week. Whereas this, it kind of it works both ways. Like I would happily watch all 8 episodes on the bounce. And I wouldn't say I'm happy to wait for it because, you know, I'm always impatient when I'm waiting for Doctor Who. But like to have the week of just like, but maybe it's this, or maybe it's that, well, like maybe this could be important. And then you get the answers, you know, and then Saturday you just, well, Friday night really, you're clamoring for when's the episode going up kind of thing.
Well, I'd say a couple of things about that. That I was very resistant to break my habit of watching it as it went out live. And I did watch the first 2 as they went out. And I was really happy that I'd waited because it felt like more of an event.
Yeah.
But when it came to Boom, I was like, okay, maybe I'll give it a go. I watched it in the morning and I thought, this is actually quite nice. And the main reason I did watch it in the morning was because I woke up that Saturday, checked my Twitter and saw something that actually was not a spoiler, but I thought was a spoiler. And what I've really noticed with fans on Twitter is they've gone from how dare they put it on at midnight, oh, think of me, won't someone think of the spoilers, to within, I noticed some of the posts, particularly from Saturday, within like not even, probably literally as they finished watching it at 12:45, people posting footage of the ending and shots of things. Oh God, I nearly said things.
Oh, okay.
The Rani.
Damn.
Yeah, there was the Drax from the Armageddon Factor. Damn. Having a glass of shandy with the ergon. That's not a euphemism. And You know, fans have gone from literally like no one spoiled anything to here's the ending, and giving no shits about anyone who hasn't seen it on BBC. And even the official account on Saturday, was it Saturday? Yeah, I think it was, posted something at about 5 o'clock. And I thought, hang on a minute, it's not even been out on BBC One yet. Hang on a minute.
But unfortunately, that side of social media has been, more prevalent in the show the last couple of years, because like with various stuff in the Moffat and Chibnall eras, you've had like, or for example, like the clip of Joe Martin being revealed as the Doctor was like up on the Doctor Who Twitter like mere hours after the episode had been up, and it was like, well, if you haven't seen it, kind of, too late because the rest of the world has, and it's
I don't mind that
reaction, get the views, really, isn't it? Like look at my opinions on this that I've seen before anyone else.
It's been viral as well.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, that's partly actually why I started watching it on a Saturday morning, because I just thought I'm gonna see something. And it's funny you mentioned YouTube, because that day I looked at my YouTube because I thought I'm not going to go on Twitter or Instagram or anything else. And then I forgot, because I went on YouTube and I saw something saying something about Boom, and I thought, oh God, I've got to watch it because I can't avoid any of this, or I'm going to be in the co-op and somebody's going to shout something like kid's going to say like, oh, I loved it when this happened or whatever. You know what I mean?
You'll turn around and hit them in the face with the crumpets. How
Yeah,
dare
well,
you?
You would absolutely push they have that bread thing with all the bread on it. You just push that on them.
Yeah, and then it turns out that it's Peter Davison's nephew, and then he starts chasing you.
Yeah.
Shit, full circle.
I think I'd probably outrun Peter Davison now.
That's if it wasn't already the title, I would just put that as maybe I could definitely outrun Peter Davison. No context. Maybe that's a podcast in itself, Guy. Maybe we can make that. What celebrities could we outrun?
Definitely not Paul McGann. I reckon Paul McGann would get you.
I reckon he's like the British Tom Cruise. Like he's just, like some cybernetic implants, break his leg and carry on running. Like
I bet he'd be smiling because he's always enjoying everything.
Yeah, smiling. But these shoes, they fit perfectly inside your head.
Yeah, this broken bottle
shit out of you
in your face. Yeah.
Oh, look at the blood! It's so red, so vibrant. But that is a completely different thing. Overall, for the episode of Rogue, Guy, would you? I know it's arbitrary, but would you give it a rating? Would you say it's better, like where it stands in the rest of the series? Is it mid? Is it upper? Is it lower?
I don't know. It's really hard because they're all so different. They're all just so different shows. I mean, it's such a different show to Dot and Bubble and Boom, and they're all so different. I would say this is the one.
About this run at the minute for me.
This is the one that I probably enjoyed the most because I think it was more traditional in structure, and I'm a bit of an old fart for the sort of beginning, middle, and end, simple story, bit of some silly monsters, someone shouting. I mean, Russell T Davies himself said, we haven't had a story where someone goes, I'm going to get you, Doctor, or whatever. And I love that. I love that in Doctor Who. I think that's my favorite thing. So for that alone, I was like, this is giving me the thrills of the classics, It was just really, really nice to have the two new writers with their new voice, and we had Richard E. Grant's face in it.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, he's now canon.
I know, now Shulker is... But of course, they come from Loki, and of course, he was in that playing alternative Loki. Yeah. So that was kind of cute, and I just felt like this one, it just had a real sort of... I'm not a great fan of the Doctor falling in love, as I said, but it was done in a way that I felt was kind of charming and interesting, and it had a potential there that I would like to see more of from everyone involved, really.
And hopefully we do, in terms of the characters and the writers. Hopefully we get to
see
them, if not next season, hopefully, like at least again in some point in Shooty's era.
Yeah, definitely this era.
Well, you never know what's coming through that. Yeah.
You never know what's in old bloody Morris's segue. It's Jonathan Groff's head.
Yeah, Mel Bush. What is she concealing in Peace Cottage, where she's from? Good old Mel. I love that.
Oh, amazing. Obviously excited for the finale.
Sure.
Yep.
Oh, see, this is the part where you say it's actually not that good. It's terrible.
I can't.
No,
I will wait for this series to be over with.
I can't wait to sit next to you in the double boo in the cinema, and for the end, the cliffhanger, and for you to be like, "How the fuck did I avoid the spoilers of that?"
How did I get around this obvious thing? Or yeah. Well, I don't know.
Good luck to you. Good luck to you surviving till Friday night.
Friday, 11 o'clock. But obviously, we'll have 45 minutes of what I should have seen last week, and then it will be the finale with the dying questions that everyone wants to know.
You know what you're going to
do? You message Connor like just before the screening starts to say, "Oh, by the way, it ends like this."
Well, you know what you're going to have to do, and quite seriously, because you're going to enter an environment full of people who've already seen it.
True.
So you're going to hear.
It'd be lining up for popcorn, and they'll say, "I can't believe it was so and so that come back last week."
Bloody hell!
Oh, I love this bit where this happened. You're going to have to. I don't know how you're going to deal with that, because
I'm going to have to go in with earmuffs. I'm going to have to go in with earmuffs and a
hoodie.
Like a fucking witness protection.
You have to have a glass block box or something. But
a briefcase.
You're going to be sitting in a glass case.
You're going to be sitting with people who are going to go, "Oh, this is the bit where you know what I mean?" How are you going to? I would be astonished if you don't have it spoiled.
But if people are loud, as long as Shooty's voice is louder, then I don't care about anyone around me. Other than
but
I'll just be looking at the screen and processing nothing else around me.
You know what fans are like, though? They like showing off about them knowing things.
Oh, I've seen this. Didn't you like
what
this?
if they come cosplayed as as
Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
The Dalek as a Cyberman.
Someone walks in as the Mavellans, and you're just like, "What the fuck?"
What?
Which would be a brave move, to be fair.
Yeah,
very squeaky. It's the return of the Sea Devils.
Yeah, it's the land and the sea thing that they copyrighted or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. I've really enjoyed this season. I can't wait to see Connor's face when it ends.
And I will broadcast my face.
So with that, Guy, we would like to extend the invitation, not just to, if you're available, obviously you're a busy man. Next season, if you want to do this again, we would be more than happy to. I know you've mentioned being on an episode with Dom.
Yeah, I would love to do an episode with Dom.
So by that, would you be up for a sort of Knights of the Round Table, all of our guests from this season, and we talk about season one as a whole, and sort of just natter on for nigh on probably 4.5 hours, maybe?
Depending what day and what I'm doing, yes, because I'm actually quite busy. I've got a few jobs going on. I've had no work for a few months, and then suddenly load everything at once. But I don't know why I'm telling the public this. They don't need to know this. We should be talking about
Again, we're not an intervention. We're not inland revenue. You can do what you like at home. It's fine.
I've got a very good accountant, so I'm well protected. I've never met Dom, and I love Dom. I think he's brilliant, and I would love to do certainly an episode with him for sure.
But no, we hopefully maybe we can sort that out for season 2, or if we can get all of you wrangled in one space to sort of be like, so what did we all think of season 1 as a whole? And then you can tell us more about, the time in the Rani episode 1, and then we can get into that in depth more.
I think I've given you all my anecdotes. I think I've been drained.
There've been some really for a lot of it. It's a shame that I haven't had the camera on, because it's literally just me and Connor sitting here just taking it all in. Like, wow, this is really interesting stuff for a podcast where we don't normally talk about anything interesting.
I don't know. I've heard yours. It's good.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you for joining us, Guy. And anything you would like to plug at this moment as we wrap up the universe?
Yeah, whether the public can know about it or not, officially or unofficially, you can plug.
No, just
Guy's
No.
playing the Rani in the new spin-off of Unit.
Yeah. It's the man I want and all that lark. No, I'm just
Colin Baker's fucking her.
God. What
You
have I
won't mind
done?
if I don't join you.
I seem to turn up on people's podcasts and ruin them somehow.
No, this has been great. This has been one of my favorite episodes ever.
Yeah,
Oh,
this is
thanks.
the highlight.
It has been
Amazing.
good. I've enjoyed it very much. So thank you.
Yes, Connor. If there's nothing you would like to plug, Connor.
Not even sponsor the Patreon. Nothing.
Yes. Hashtag get Guy kicked out of Peter Davison's house. Get that trending on Twitter.
No, I
Make
have,
a
I have
t-shirt.
nothing to sell.
A
Nothing to
t-shirt
sell.
of like you being kicked from behind by Peter Davison and a door slamming.
All I'll say is if you did enjoy anything I did on CBBC, please remember that when I'm homeless and have
Remember
no
me.
money, and I'm knocking on your door, just remember that. Yeah.
Yes. Have the biscuit cupboard fully stocked and a nice warm blanket for him to sleep on.
Oh yeah. And let me watch your Doctor Who DVDs. That'd be nice.
So now this is the part where, as we've done our relaunch, I've been dragging out the outros longer and longer. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time. I don't know how long.
I should
what my
just warn
longest-
Guy that this
No.
speech gets longer
No,
every
no.
week.
No, but look, you've somehow found us on YouTube, the most social platform of them all. Because I mean, sod Facebook, sod X, sod all of them. YouTube is the one that matters to me. No, this is our thoughts on episode 6. I want to call it Laser. What on earth is this? Rogue. Laser.
Welcome to Laser Train.
Yeah, welcome to Laser. That's why I had Laser in my mind. This has been our thoughts on Rogue. And potential stuff yet to come for me, but you've probably already listened to. Look, we don't need to tell you how to use social media. Facebook, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, TikTok, MySpace, MSN, for those few accounts that probably are still on there somewhere. Eventually, Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, when we get streaming our gaming stuff. Our Twitch ID will be below. One day we can afford a Patreon, similar to Guy. We might even co-fund it, who knows?
We'll all get kicked out of Peter Davison's house together.
We all get kicked out.
Or we do tackle different doctors each. Like, Guy, you go for Peter. I'll go Sylvester's house.
I'll
And
go
then-
Christopher Eccleston.
Oh, Christopher Eccleston.
I wouldn't go to do Chris.
I wouldn't come back.
No, he wouldn't get out of that one.
No. I hope the universe turns around and takes a big shit on you.
I didn't know he was from Liverpool.
Oh, brilliant. What else was you listening?
Yeah, no. And then
Radio Times.
Radio Times, yeah. News of the world, match of the day listings. No. No, the important one, emails, nerdbiblecontact@gmail.com. Send us your thoughts. Don't send us spoilers, but interact with us on there. I want to read something that isn't episode 7 related, and something that I'm looking forward to yet not want spoiled. And I hope this hasn't all been some troll for episode 7 to be some really rubbish naff episode.
Imagine when this episode comes out, the first comment is just, it's so-and-so.
Oh my God. You're going to have to just abandon it and then come back to it on Sunday or something, aren't you?
Yeah, we'll have to throw his phone out the window.
Someone is absolutely going to comment something.
Lock it in a cupboard. Lock it in a vault.
Yeah. Well, why don't you release this one on Saturday morning, and then no one will even know.
It's fair enough. Yeah, it's a pretty good
It's a
idea.
fair shout.
Yeah.
We can. The rules of time are ours, and they will obey us.
I'm Lord Victorious.
Yeah, we're in that as well. Yeah, is that on your list?
No, we're not in that. That's been and done. Time Lord Victorious is done.
We were part of what? Doomsday. We were
Yeah,
the sixth
Doomsday.
part.
We were. Yes.
But thank you everyone for listening to these ramblings like we do every week. Thank you, Guy, for joining us. It has honestly been an absolute pleasure. We could have probably talked for
It's
at
been a
least another
delight.
2 hours.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
Whether you like it or not.
But we will hopefully see you, the audience, next week, and Guy in the future, maybe.
Absolutely.
With or without Dom, we don't know. We'll have to search for them
TBA.
both across the stars.
TBA.
They've both fallen for a space triangle. We'll have to retrieve them both. Until then, thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Stay pasty.
Of course.